of different cultures, languages, and of different religions was, I imagine, very grueling work. In the more updated scenario, can you imagine how hard it would have been for our pizza delivering pastor to talk to that construction worker about Jesus in the scriptures? If you want to hear a much more concise and clear version of making disciples, please go and listen to the children's sermon recorded on May 24th, given by our Minister of Spiritual Formation, Sarah Schultz, about sharing God's story. So you may ask, Mark, what does this mean for us? In a recent survey of church-going Christians, 51% did not know what the Great Commission was. 25% recognized the term but couldn't explain it. 6% weren't sure. And only 17% of church-going Christians could recognize and tell the meaning. Now, to be fair, the same survey then provided 5 well-known Bible verses to the same respondents and asked, which one was the Great Commission? 37% identified the correct passage. 31% provided an incorrect answer. And 33% did not know. Now, also to be fair, the term Great Commission was not coined by Matthew or mentioned in Scripture, but rather by someone in the 17th century. So again, you ask, Mark, what does this mean for us? So this passage is a command to share the story of Jesus. It has come to mean that each of us, not just apostles or pastors, need to share God's story with others. But you say, I'm not a missionary. That evangelism stuff is for others to take care of. It feels awkward speaking about the word with my secular friends. And you know what? I agree with those sentiments 100%. Evangelism, or telling God's story, has gotten a bad rap. At worst, we think of the Crusades, where thousands were killed in the name of Christ trying to convert others of different faiths. At best, we think of those who knock on your door to tell you their stories of God and maybe try to convert you. Even the word evangelism and its intent has begun to fade. Eugene Peterson, in The Message, an interpretation of the Bible using contemporary language, does not use make disciples in his version of the Matthew passage, but rather he interprets it as follows. Go out and train everyone, marking them in baptism and instruct them. Well, isn't that the same? Well, not quite. Pastor Francis Chan, an American author, teacher, and preacher, uses the following illustration. He told his daughter to clean her room, a command, if you will. After a while, she came out of her room and he inquired, had she completed the task? She responded, well, I memorized what you told me. I can now say it in Greek. And later, my friends are coming over and we're going to study what it would look like if I cleaned my room. Chan's point is that we may memorize the passage and study it, but do we actually go and make disciples? To illustrate this further, there's an American popular version of the Matthew passage by Adam4D.com, and Jesus says, so guys, if you feel comfy telling someone about me during the regular course of your life, that would be nice of you. If your denomination does baptisms, and if the Trinitarian nature of God fits your worldview, then great, include those aspects in your efforts. Be careful not to suggest that they follow my commandments too closely, though. That would be just weird, and you don't want to be weird. On a wall high above its gathering space at the Church of the Resurrection in Leawood, Kansas, the church's purpose is displayed: to build a Christian community where non-religious and nominally religious people are becoming deeply committed Christians. That is quite a clear and succinct purpose. Now, do they turn away more religious individuals who are further along in their spiritual journeys? Of course not. But Mark, the Church of the Resurrection is the largest United Methodist church in the country with many resources. We can't do what they do. To that I say, of course we can, albeit on a smaller scale. Look at these points. We ask on our attendance pads, did you radiate God's love this week? Did you go out in the world away from church and show people the Christian way by example or by word? Did you leave your church Zoom meeting, discipleship group, or choir gathering and share God's story? It is much more difficult given the pandemic restrictions we need to follow, but I have a feeling the disciples did not have it easy in the first century either. Pre-pandemic, one of my favorite places to go was Brouhaha in the Galleria here on Main Street. I take time not just to order my coffee, but to ask the server or barista how they're feeling. You might be surprised to see their surprise that someone cares for them as big smiles crease their faces. As I got to know the workers at Brouhaha better, they would ask me about coming every Sunday morning. And I said that I come here before church. Oh, what church was the query? At that point, I invited them to an event if it was appropriate, or even come to worship if they had a free Sunday. I don't know if they ever attended, but I was trying to radiate God's love. The Alexanders are a young family in our congregation. Natalie and Ben and their kids, Anna and Elizabeth, help pick up and deliver meals to the students in need from North Star Elementary School. Kids who live at or below the poverty line, or kids whose parents lost their jobs during this pandemic, are being fed thanks in part to the efforts of the Alexander family, a shining example of Christians following the example of Christ. As Mark Stachura, a pastor of Grace Evangelical Church in Georgia, has stated, the mark of a great church is not its seating capacity, but its sending capacity. Or as John Stott, an English Anglican priest, said, to evangelize does not mean to win converts, but simply to announce the good news, irrespective of the results. Here at Newark, we have an embedded discipleship program, members helping members along their spiritual journeys to become better, more authentic disciples of Jesus. Our growing children's ministry, led by Sarah, and a whole bunch of lay volunteers are providing examples for the future. The Wesley Foundation, campus ministry at the University of Delaware, is reaching out to those college students looking for a safe place to study the Word, have fun, and be in mission to others. 6 of those students graduated a week ago and will be in the world helping others. We are a reconciling congregation and show to all that we do truly accept and affirm individuals for who they are in the name of our loving God. My grandmother raised 16 children. Yep, that's right, 16 children. And out of that union came 43 grandchildren and numerous great-grandchildren. To say she did not have a lot of time was an understatement. Whenever we visited her in her apartment, she would always say, "There's coffee on the stove, I just made it fresh." She was always cooking, cleaning, or being busy about something. Typically, my family wasn't the only family crammed into her tiny apartment. That gave me cousins with whom to play while the adults talked. As I got older, the offer of coffee sounded like a good idea. Mind you, I had never had coffee before, but maybe a sip of my father's. But during one visit, I entered her tiny kitchen and asked for a cup. She poured the dark liquid from an old percolator that sat on her gas stove. She advised me to put milk and sugar in it so that it would taste better. And then something happened which never happened in my first 13 years of life. My grandmother sat down at the kitchen table with me, just me. Now, unless it was a wedding, funeral, or family party, I never saw my grandmother sit down. I tasted the coffee and it was horrible. I saw a slight smile on her face. And she asked, "Good, huh?" But the remarkable thing was that we sat and talked. She took 5 minutes to chat with me, and only me, the sixth oldest of 43 grandchildren. Now, it was not a conversation about God, but I have and will remember that experience forever. When will each of us take the time to make a memorable experience with others, sharing God's story and making disciples? You know, there might even be some fresh coffee on the stove.